Welcome to week 5. This is our second to last lesson. We'll have 1 week break and then we'll do the actual invention convention judging. I think it's 27th. Let's just go here. Yep. So March 27th. So 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks until we're getting there, right? Tonight we are going to talk about marketing and communication a little bit. We're going to talk about the presentation boards, but I'm going to steal a bunch of time away from marketing and communication to talk about 2 really important things. First, I'm going to revisit the build thing and just make sure we have an opportunity to talk about sort of how that build phase went, and make sure that we all have a plan for getting there. I know this part can be very difficult. And then the second thing I want to make sure that we talk about is the judging. So I have 2 handouts tonight, and I think we'll start with the judging. So the presentation handout is just a quick and easy way for you to prototype what your board presentations will be, and we'll spend some time doing that. But the judging forms, I have the actual judging forms that the judges will use, and I want to talk about the what teachers will call a rubric. You could think about like how are they going to score you. The score sheets, if you will, for the Invention convention. So I definitely want to talk about that. Before we do that, let's revisit our build test and troubleshoot from last week. So this weekend, I'm hoping some people were able to get started on their actual build phase of their inventions. I know things can get busy. I will be the first to confess, we're behind at home. Alex's app, we didn't make the progress we needed to, so we're going to try to catch up this week. Sam's, I think we showed a prototype last week, but that's like the easiest prototype you could come up with. It's like you buy the mat and then you put some tape on there. That's easy. The more challenging part is now how do we create the thing that is acceptable for judging? Because remember, it's got to fit in a 2 by 2 by 2, 2 foot by 2 foot space. And his mat is right away. It's 3 foot by 5 foot, so that doesn't work. So we're gonna have to get a smaller version of that mat and create one because he wants to sort of demonstrate how it absorbs sound and all that stuff. So we did order some materials. So Monday night, which was past this weekend, even with the bonus day of the snow day, we were on Amazon. We were ordering sensors and things like that for his mat because we're going to add that to it. Sam, yeah?
Like we definitely spent over $50.
Yeah, we spent over $50 because Daddy likes to buy sensors and things like that. But we're not going to use all of it in your invention. I'm all about playing by the rules, so we will definitely have less than $50 of stuff in the invention. No questions at this time, thank you, Mr. Stinson. But the whole thing is like we got to figure out how to get that in 2 by 2. So in any event, how do we feel people are doing in terms of what's going on? How do we feel like everyone's doing in terms of actually? Do you have the materials? Do you know the materials that you need? Do people understand the components that you're going to need? Ish, okay. How many people have actually already got the stuff that you're going to need? That's going to be the sort of the contents of your creation. How many people already have that? Okay. Yeah, I would say you do. Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, but it's still figuring it out a little bit. Okay. Yeah. All right. So what I'd like to offer, and this weekend I think our flexibility is a little bit limited. Sunday I think we're going somewhere, but Saturday to do another set of office hours, probably at the library. I got to call and see about availability. But if people are having trouble getting to that phase, I think doing a couple of hours where people can come and talk, we'll offer that again. So I'll send out more details on that as we figure that out. Okay, but everyone's clear. Nobody's thinking, oh, when do I get to the part where I build? Like everyone's clear, like we should be building at this point, right? Good? Okay. So, judging. Let's hand around these judging forms. I'm going to try to split this fairly evenly. Terrible failure at that. There we go. Please take one and hand it around. I think I printed 20 of these. There should be enough for some people to have a couple of copies if you want them. So I want to talk about this form. I'm going to steal one here because I forgot to save one for myself soon. Thank you. I want to talk about this form. This is the form that the judges will use. What you'll notice is we have a few dimensions, a few categories that we're going to be judged on. And I want to bring this up now instead of next week because I want you to have time to think about these dimensions against what you've done so far for your project. So starting with, and this actually is great because it not only has the score sheet, but if you look below, it has the explanations. It helps you, as a judge, imagine a judge looking at this, it helps you to understand what does it mean to have a high score for originality, or in the inventing process, or invention effectiveness, or the practicality of the invention, or the need for the invention. So I would ask all of you to take this home. Everyone should have at least one copy. Take this home and score yourself. And have your parents or siblings or friends score you. There's plenty of lines here, 10 lines. And do that as you continue to go through your invention. And I hope we can all be resilient and take critical feedback that is coming from a loving place, that is coming from a place of, I want you to do well in the final judging, and so right now I might tell you originality is a 2. Yikes, ouch, right in the heart. But then you should be able to think about how can I build more originality into my invention, and how can I build that into my presentation, right? So it's not just how do I make my invention more original, but how do I talk about originality as a part of my pitch for my invention? Does that make sense? Good? Does anyone have any questions about what any of these things mean, right? The explanations are here, and I don't think I need to explain them here to you, but if anyone is looking at this and says, hold on a second, what does that really mean, invention effectiveness, right? Raise your hand now. I'll also, obviously, next week we can continue to talk about this. Yes, Milo?
What's the practicality of the invention mean?
So, imagine that somebody comes up with an idea for an underwater vehicle, right? For assessing damage in large like cruise ships and stuff like that. Like, whoa, that's an original idea. That's a cool idea. Your process is perfect, right? It's like you said, here's how it'll work, and here's how, and you've really clearly defined all of that. The judges on practicality, though, for someone in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade, they're going to go, yeah, you're just not going to build a submarine. It's not practical to assume that you're going to be able to invent that submarine. It's also a matter of the practicality of, would someone actually use this? So for that one, yeah, I think somebody would. But it's not practical to imagine that you're going to be, like, if you invent a flying car, it's a great idea, but, right? It's not practical that you would be able to create that. Now, there are things that you can do to speak to this dimension. The same way that you can say, okay, maybe like the automatic dog feeder. The judges, if they've been to other competitions, they've heard that a lot. But you can say, hold on, I can help you to understand how my version of that is more original, because I'm also thinking about my dog needs to have wet food delivered. My dog needs to have, all these different things. You can also speak to the practicality of the invention by like assuming what judges might be thinking, and then saying, I can see you might be concerned about how practical this might be. Let me demonstrate how this will work, that this is likely to work, right? So practicality, I guess, is one part, is it within your grasp to build it? And one part, is it a practical invention? Will it work, right? Is this likely to actually work in the real world? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. Any other questions about these? Yes?
I have another question.
Sure.
What if we have thought of our thing and then we just figured out that our idea was already a thing?
That's very common. It's not uncommon at all for people to have an idea that's already been thought of, right? I think we talked in the first week about
I
Google, right? Wasn't the first search engine? There were tons of search engines out there, things to go find. And there are still some around today, you know?
we saw like literally our idea
Yeah.
on
So,
the video yesterday.
so you might not score well for originality if,
No, we thought of it before we saw it.
which is, but the judges don't know that. So when you demonstrate your process, you can say, and then we found out in week 5 that there was a similar product out there. You don't want to say the same product, right? Your product's different, right? There's something about your product that's different. So now you can start talking about how your product is different than that product, and that's an opportunity to reduce the impact that somebody might say, oh, I know this product's already out there, and they might score you down for originality. Don't hide from where you think your weak points are. Make a counter argument. Tell them why, here's why ours is better. Here's why ours is different.
Also, has Invention Convention inventions ever sold
Oh
in
yeah.
the world?
Oh yeah. If you like, I'll bring some examples next week, so I can show you some of the places where real invention convention inventions have gone on to get patents, have gone on to become real inventions that made money in the real world and made a difference. And actually, that was one other thing I want to talk about on judging. But yes.
I have 2 questions. How many judging things are there? I know there's ours, and then it's like.
Yeah. How many rounds?
Yeah.
How many rounds of judging will there be? So a couple of things. So Kathy Thompson is working on getting the judges. We're hoping to have 9 judges. Kathy's not here today, but that's where she usually sits, so I'm referring to her empty seat. We're hoping to have 9 judges who will work in sets of 3, judging each invention, and I'm hoping we'll be able to have those judges judge every invention, every judge judging every invention, so we'll have lots of scores that we can average and have a nice sort of scientific.
State and then
There's no regional competition this year in Connecticut, so anyone who advances from our competition will go straight to the Connecticut state, and anyone who does well at state. You hated the regionals. Well, they heard your feedback and they canceled it. So, and then anyone who does well at state will move on to the national competition.
whoever wins national, what does it get?
$1 bazillion. I don't know what the prize is. I think there's probably some scholarship. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's simply by the different sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So they can, a lot of them are going to help you file patents.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole process where some sponsors will do that. Some of it is monetary.
Mm-hmm.
Depends upon the sponsor. Some of them have very sponsor-specific awards. Some of it's investment into your invention to kind of turn it into something real.
Yeah.
Now, so there's.
And there's specific prizes at the state level as well as the national, right? So there's prizes that help people who maybe are disabled, or people who, specific things for public safety, right? There's categories for that kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of categories. So like last year, he got the Fire Marshal's Award.
Fire Marshal's Award. And that was at the state level or at nationals?
Level.
Yeah, okay. You went to nationals last year, right? Yeah, it's a big deal. That's cool, man. That's really cool.
They have, so you've got all these different industrial segments,
Yeah.
that are bringing in their own awards. So you may not, so kids have many opportunities because there are awards for of this, they kind of segment all these items into groups. And okay, they're going to award a certain number of awards for groups that the judges do. But then you've got these other, organizations like the fire marshals that have their own, they're going through everybody's.
Yeah.
So there's multiple opportunities. You can win something within the group, and then the top couple from each group can advance to nationals. But then now you've got these other folks who are in there representing their respective industries, who, regardless of group, are looking for something that specifically fits their field, and they may have their own awards for it.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Sam?
This is actually important.
Okay.
Can only one person advance out of this group, or can everyone?
Great question, Sam. So, how many people will we be sending to states? In my experience, it's a formulaic start to that answer. So they will say 10% or 20%. what I would say though is that can grow with conversation with the people who run Invention Convention. So I have run this in the past, and we were able to send 3, but I actually could have sent more. They offered to send several more. What's that?
Did you hear a doorbell?
I did hear a doorbell, but I think it was maybe.
Sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
is that you?
I think
Okay.
it was right. I fell for that the first week. Fool me once, you're great. Okay. So, but I think that we will be sending more than one person. I suspect we'll be able to send 3 or so people, but I'm hoping to send more. So it depends also on how many people we have in total. So we'll figure that out. But yeah, good question, Sam. Okay. So we just talked about how the judges will score your inventions. We talked about how you will sort of proceed through the different stages from our round to the state round to nationals possibly. But I want to give a plug for none of that matters. And here's why. If you have an invention that you're passionate about, if you don't even get out of this round, but you keep working on your invention and you build something real and it helps people in the world, that's what matters, right? So if you build something that helps you and your friends and your family, and you build something that's real, that's what matters. And I don't just mean that's what matters to your own sense of fulfillment. By the way, that's what colleges, real colleges these days, the Ivies, they don't just care that you have straight A's and that you have great SAT scores. They want to know that when you come to Harvard, when you come to Yale, when you come to MIT, what is it exactly that you're coming here for? And they don't want you to say, oh, I want to make the world a better place. They want to say, tell me specifically, what are you already working on? What are you already passionate about? And how can we help you to bring that in a bigger way to the world? That's what it's all about. And you being able to write an essay about, I built this thing when I was in 4th and 5th grade, and then I kept working on it, and then it turned into this, and it turned into this, and it turned into that. That's a big deal. Okay, so that can be a huge impact on your success in your whole life. And oh, by the way, it's a good thing to do in the world. Yes, sir.
So some of the speakers that they've had at the Invention Convention are now, in their respective fields, but where they were recognized back when they did their invention,
Yeah.
By a corporate sponsor, and they now work for that corporate, and they were able to carry that all the way through. And when they graduate college, they were able to go back to the,
Yep.
And they had that recognition already.
Yeah. And did they do the thing where they said, they start with the judge and they say, raise your hand if you have a patent? And you see like all hands go up. Okay, raise your hand if you have 10 patents, and all the hands go up. And it's like these people who have really made something in the world, have really created something that's going to change the world and really almost across the board change the world in a better way. That's a really cool thing. Okay.
Also,
Yes.
just how many, they also ask questions of the judges, like how many of them have done this, judge
Yeah.
before. Probably one of the most amazing things is the passion that these people have for the kids.
Yep.
And for their
Coming
invention,
back.
and for wanting to see them succeed, and for
Yeah.
making sure the kids are all encouraged. We have judges who've been doing this for 30 years.
Mhm.
Going back and say they love it so much and seeing all the inventions. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of support for everybody who's doing it.
So believe that and know that even if you don't make it out of this round, by the way, I'm planning on doing this again next year. So if you're going from 4th grade to 5th grade, 5th grade to 6th grade, 6th grade to 7th grade, we'll give you more opportunities. You can keep working on your same invention, you can create a new invention, and as long as people are interested, I'll keep doing this, for as long as people are interested. So I love this competition and what it does. So, okay, good. Any questions there? All right, so good. All right, so we have, Alex, you have a question?
Well, it's not really a question, but
Okay.
I was looking through my sheets and I found.
Oh, right, so that's so your binder is my old binder, and I have score sheets from previous inventors in there.
Oh.
So, all right, we have our trifolds. These are our prototype trifolds. So we want to start working on our presentation boards. The presentation boards are your visual aid for sort of talking through the important dimensions about your invention. Take that and take one and hand it to others. If you do need help naming your invention, I'm happy to help. I love doing that stuff. Okay, so what's on our boards? This is a real example of a board. You do not have to choose these exact dimensions or this layout, but I think it's a great way of thinking about how you will lay out your board. And I would recommend that you start by just sketching in these sections on your prototype. You can fold it if you want. You can stand it up. You can fold it along the lines if you want. But it might be harder to draw on before you do that. So, name of your invention. Highly recommend right in the middle at the top. Inspiration. I love that title for this, right? It's kind of like, how did you come up with this name? And really telling a story there. I think pictures tell, the picture tells 1,000 words, something like that. You can put in text like this, but I highly recommend have an infographic. So infographic or an icon, have something that is visual, that the second somebody walks up to it, they feel what your inspiration is, right? They feel what that is, and then you can tell them what it was. If you think about presentations, great presentations, and you've probably all seen this as you sit in classes with teachers presenting, and I'm sure any of us who have sat through presentations in our jobs, when somebody reads the words that are on the slide, it makes me sad. It makes me really sad. I almost brought a picture. One of the things I used to do in my job is I was responsible for events that we put on, and I worked for Morgan Stanley. We bring big speakers to speak at our events. I once coached George Bush on presenting at one of our conferences and how to talk to our advisors, and he had a slide and it had words, and he was reading the slide, and I said, you know what, I feel like you don't even need that slide. And he said, I don't know, I said, you know what, I bet, if we just turned off the projector right now, I bet you could do it. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's good. And the whole presentation became just him sitting in a chair talking to the president of our wealth management business, and it was just like, that's the presentation, right? So the authentic version of this is not you standing here going, and then I was inspired because I saw, right? It's have something that captures the idea. A couple of words maybe, a couple of bullet points, right? A couple of words maybe, but you know the story. It's your invention. So don't write a paragraph there, okay? Like have something to help anchor your presentation, but you're going to talk about it. And I would say that for each of these. The description, right? Some of them need a little bit more text, right? Your diagram, right? So your sketches and diagrams of it. The functionality, the uses, improvements, advertising, and then sort of sources that you used if you cited various metrics or studies out there, so bibliography, so you have to cite your sources, obviously, anytime you use other people's data or information or ideas. Okay? Okay. Is anyone confused? Yes, Alex.
Well, this is sort of off topic.
Then can we come back to it in a second? Is it about something we were talking about a moment ago?
No, it's just.
Okay, we'll come back to it in a second, and then we'll see if we need to address it with everybody. Okay? Yes, Sam.
Well, I kind of have like an example for like.
Okay.
Would it work if you just like you know how like Rachel, she does
Yep.
has bullet points and then makes it up as she goes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So. Yes. So when we talk about these bullet points, they can be something that just helps you remember your spiel. That doesn't mean you don't practice. That doesn't mean you just stand up there and make it. You should practice 100 times. I mean, that's not exaggeration. You should practice 100 times. If you want, record yourself saying it, and then listen to yourself with earbuds saying it again. Great presenters, prepare. You should know it backwards and forwards. Yes, Milo.
So since my invention involves animals, can I bring my
my invention and the slideshow to still show them like a or maybe a video of what happened at
Yeah.
my house when like it was
Yes.
actually happening.
Yes, so I would like if you have an iPad or a laptop that you want to show a video on, yeah, I think that's fair game. I wouldn't mount that to your board, but I would mount photographs. So see here, this is the process of it being made, and oh look, it's the actual student involved in the process of constructing it. That's important. That doesn't mean you have to be out there with the table saw going, oh, whoops, okay? All that means is you have to be involved in the process and be honest and upfront about who helped you and how you got that help, okay? You do not have to create every piece of this yourself. If you're coding something, people can help you to do that coding, but you have to understand what the process is, and you have to know how it came together, and you have to be honest about how it was put together, okay? Yes, ma'am?
Why would we need to improve, like fill in the improvement box
Yeah.
for our own invention?
Isn't that an interesting dimension? So, when you went to state and nationals, they had ideas for improvements, right? Just like we're talking about, be transparent about who helped you and what the process was. Be transparent about other ideas you have for how you can make it even better. Just because you don't get to it in version 1 of your design, it doesn't mean there's not going to be a version 2 and a version 3 and a version 4. If you have good ideas that you weren't able to implement yet, talk about those good ideas. Here are other things that we can do with this. So that when they say, you know what would be really great is if you could add this to your invention, or if you could change your invention to also do this. And if you said, you know, that's a really great idea. We talked to some people and we got that same feedback. And so what we're thinking about, and you can kind of point to some of the bullet points to tie that in, they'll feel like they've been heard, but they'll also feel like you really thought this through. This isn't the first time that you're thinking about this. Okay? Yes, Sam?
So like for the pictures, like I know a few people are like doing coding for it.
Sure.
Should we like?
Yeah, right?
Should like we show them the code or something? Or just
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, a few people are doing code. I could imagine, I mean, a picture of you sitting, looking at the code, working with whoever's helping you do the code. That could be helpful. I could imagine actually taking snippets of the code, right, that show like the critical part of here's where we invoke this library that does this, and like that can be visually interesting, especially in programs that show color coding and, you know, like have a nice style with the code. So yeah, that could work, and we could come up with other ideas. If people need ideas for how you would do this, like we can talk about that stuff. Okay, Alex?
Can I say my question?
Let's let everybody get started on this, and then we'll talk about the question, and then we'll figure out if we need everybody to hear it as well. Okay? Okay, let's hear it.
Are you allowed to work with a team, like a
No.
team of friends? Like
You are not. You're not allowed to work with a team of friends. Nope, this is individual. This is why sort of having parents here to help is really great, because obviously parents will be working with the students anyway, but like it's hard for one student to work through this whole process on their own. So yeah, no, good question. Yeah, parents are, obviously, parents can help, but again, students have to be transparent about that. You can't pretend like, oh yeah, I did this all myself. Yep, I've been programming for 20 years. Aren't you 10? Okay, good? Okay, all right, so let's get started. Do some prototyping on here. Think about the pieces that you'd want to put and what you would say. I like working in this size because it does limit the number of words you can put on the page. Okay?
I have a question.
Sure.